Bitcoin is a truth virus wrapped in a freedom virus, wrapped in a monetary virus. And it is spreading throughout the entire world. When 10 people on the city block embrace it, it becomes more powerful. When the richest person on the block embraces it, it becomes more powerful again. When a small city embraces it, it becomes more powerful again, and the city's transformed. They become more truthful, and they look out further, and they become more rational. And then everyone in the network benefits. And so as Bitcoin spreads virally through cities and counties and states and countries, on one hand, it's drawing their energy. On the other hand, it's transforming them. Every single politician, every single person that seeks to benefit from Bitcoin finds themselves transformed by Bitcoin. So it is a virus, but it's a virus of rationale, and it's a virus of truth, and it's a virus of soundness, sound money. So as more and more countries embrace it, it will actually make Bitcoin stronger. Bitcoin is better if adversaries, if the 20 superpowers in the world, or the 20 powers in the world, they all embrace it, they will all create a countervailing check and balance on each other that strengthens the protocol and actually strengthens everybody in the network. So I don't worry about it spreading to other countries. I don't worry about it spreading to more powerful companies or any other entity. I think Bitcoin is a perfect machine made of imperfect parts. And it is true that every single person that adopts Bitcoin will be imperfect. Every company, every government, they will all be imperfect, but they will give their energy to the network. The network will become even more anti-fragile, even more robust, and even more powerful. And that is the impact of this brilliant crypto virus that was unleashed by Satoshi on the world. The GameStop announcement and Mayor Adams' announcement about the bit bonds, and Cantor's announcement about Bitcoin credit, and the Nakamoto announcement. We had the vice president here. We've never had a vice president at a Bitcoin conference, right? So Bitcoin being embraced by the government, we have cabinet members here, Bitcoin being embraced by states, Bitcoin being embraced by cities, Bitcoin being embraced by lots and lots of public companies, Bitcoin being embraced by the mainstream media, rank and file, and just the incredible surge of Bitcoiners here. I think altogether that's extraordinary. In time, we're going to have countries coming, working to outdo each other, and that will be a wonderful day. I'm very inspired by the great thinkers throughout the civilization. And of course, if I had to pick one mentor of the modern era, it would be Satoshi, because Satoshi gave us perfect money. And I date January 3rd, 2009 as the singularity. All of the historians, all of the writers I read, Voltaire and von Mises and Rothbard and Durant, they all lament that the world is an imperfect place, the money is broken, and government policy intervention doesn't work. All of them agree on that. It took Satoshi to give us the solution, because the solution was, for the first time in human history, we can tightly bind economic energy to the individual, put it in their head. And so this idea that we can invert the entire power structure of the human race by pulling the energy out of the land, out of the currency, out of the gold, out of the companies, out of the collectibles, out of the bonds, and put it into the heads or the hands of the people, that's a profound breakthrough, because that gave us the hope that we could actually deliver economic freedom, political freedom, dignity and sovereignty to humanity. I would like to say that was a dream before January 3rd, but the truth is all of these historians, all of these economists I've read, they never articulated the dream. They couldn't conceive of the solution. They just gave you 100 examples of the problem. And so if there is one mentor, it's got to be Satoshi.
I want to talk about the 4242 capital plan. How is that going for you guys? And can you simplify and tell us a little bit where that went?
In October of 2024, we announced a 21-21 plan. We announced that we were going to raise 21 billion of equity and 21 billion of fixed income in order to buy Bitcoin. And that was 10 times bigger than anything anybody had ever done in the history of the capital markets. It was the biggest equity filing in the history of the capital market, not just in the US, but anywhere. And people thought we were crazy. And we said, well, give us 3 years. We'll get through it, And then what came next was the red sweep, followed by an orange cabinet, followed by extraordinary enthusiasm. And we went through that first $21 billion of equity in like 4 months. It went not 3 years, but 3 to 4 months. And then we were able to go and sell billions and billions of fixed income. And so we realized, come this quarter, we're about 6 months out, we decided that we needed to reset it. And so we doubled down to 42 billion in equity and 42 billion in fixed income. Again, setting our targets out 3 years. Maybe it will take us that long. Perhaps we will go faster. How fast we go is a function of the enthusiasm of the capital markets and the Bitcoin market, and then everything everyone else is doing in this community, right? When the mayor of New York announces that New York is behind the Bitbond, that helps us. When the government announced a strategic Bitcoin reserve, that helps us. Should they buy lots of Bitcoin, that will help us as well. So we don't know exactly how fast we'll get through it, but we're confident that we will. And the goal is to simply strengthen the Bitcoin network by funneling all of that capital from the fiat currency markets and the equity capital markets and the traditional credit markets into the Bitcoin economy. Lots of people will come up with lots of things to do with digital capital over time. What we're doing with it is we're using it as collateral. It's the base layer that we use to issue billions of dollars of bonds. We've issued about $10 billion of bonds that were backed by the Bitcoin. And now we've just issued 2 preferred stocks, one called Strike, and there's about $1 billion of it floating in the market now. That is backed by the Bitcoin. And another thing we issued called Strife, that provides a 10% dividend at par value. That's the sort of the highest yielding instrument of its kind in the market. That is backed by Bitcoin. So when people are buying this preferred stock called Strife, we're agreeing to give them 10% yield forever, for 100 years, for 1,000 years. And so how are we doing that? We're investing our own Bitcoin. And then their question is, well, how will you pay us? Well, we're invested in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's appreciating. I think it'll appreciate 30% a year for the next 20 years, and then 20% or more. So the Bitcoin is the engine that is generating the dividends, that is generating the collateral and the security for those fixed income investors. The future of our company, our business strategy, is we wish to be the global leader in the issuance of Bitcoin-backed credit. We want to issue a preferred stock that gives you European yield in return for Bitcoin yield. So we'll give the Europeans more yield than they're getting from their corporate bonds. Or we'll generate yield for the Japanese yen. So the Japanese investors get 50 basis points in yield from their corporate bonds. If we go to Japan and offer 10 times that much, they're getting JPY yield. We will take back Bitcoin yield, you see? So what we're doing is we're creating Bitcoin yield for our equity investors, and we're giving fiat yield for all of the conventional fixed income investors. That's a $300 trillion market. So when you're saying, well, how are we actually getting value for the Bitcoin? The Bitcoin is generating yield for our equity shareholders because every time we sell any of those fixed income instruments, that generates BTC yield. And then, of course, the fixed income instruments generate a more secure, higher yield for the conventional investors. And that's a business that can grow scalably for a long, long time. The critical thing is we have to have the Bitcoin. We have the $60 billion of Bitcoin collateral. That's what allows us to secure the loan And that's also what allows us to provide the performance to the convertible preferred stocks that the investors want. And so it's a very elegant strategy right now. The beauty of the strategy is we hold our own Bitcoin. We're not giving it to anybody else, hoping they'll give it back to us. In essence, it's a Bitcoin-backed credit strategy. If I were to go to a conventional investor and I were to say, what would you rather have, 50% return and 50 vol, or 20% return and 20 vol? The majority of them would want 20% return and 20 vol. The actual market for that is 100x bigger. And that's because they just don't want to get on the roller coaster. And Bitcoin is a roller coaster for many. But having said all that, the capital markets are structured. So there are some people that have billions of dollars to invest in venture capital. They have to invest in a private equity of a venture. There are other people that have billions of dollars to invest in bonds. They have to buy the bond. Other people have billions of dollars to invest in convertible bonds. They have to buy the convertible bond. Some people have billions of dollars to invest in equity. They can't buy Bitcoin. They can buy a Bitcoin company. And so when you look at the overall capital markets, and I'm talking about $400 to $500 trillion, that's been structured over 50 years. These people created that fund. All the famous money managers they've been in the business 30 years. So 10 years ago, they agreed with their limited partners, the pension funds and the endowments. They agreed they would invest that money with this strategy. They have to stay in their lane. And the charter doesn't include Bitcoin. So what we're doing is if you're a private company, you give the venture capitalist Bitcoin preferred. And if you're public, you give the equity capitalist public equity. And if you give credit instruments to credit investors, they can buy it. Believe it or not, there are some people that can only invest in distressed debt from bankrupt companies. I do not intend to ever serve that market, right? I'm not going to bankrupt myself to give them something to buy from me. But they have to buy that. And so once you understand where all the money is, you have the people in Japan, they want Japanese yen denominated yield. I could say, well, I'll give you something better in dollars. They're like, I can't buy it. We have a 10% yield in dollars right now. They're getting 50 basis points, 1/20th as much in yen. They're not going to buy the thing that's 20 times better. They might very well buy something that yields 4% in yen because it's in yen. So you have to go to the investors and give them the instrument they want, structured the way they want in their capital market, if you're going to get them to trade their capital for your security or your investment idea. And that's what we're doing as a business in order to grow the Bitcoin ecosystem and bridge the traditional capital markets with the crypto economy.